3 spine-chilling true stories of cursed childhoods, revealed secrets of sinister hauntings. The laughter of children echoed sweetly through the quaint Maple Street, wrapping Sarah in the warmth of what felt like an idyllic life. Her 2 little ones, Ella and Max, played happily in the yard, their giggles dancing on the light autumn breeze. But as the sun dipped low and shadows began to stretch, an uneasy whisper wrapped itself around her heart. It started with whispers, soft and haunting, like the rustling of leaves in the dead of night. At first, Sarah brushed them aside, figments of a tired mother's imagination. Yet, with every passing day, she couldn't shake the feeling that someone, or something, was watching. Then came the toys, small figurines Max adored, a knight and a dragon, moved when no one was watching. Once, they faced each other as they should. The next day, the knight stood alone, slumped against the wall. Sarah's heart raced with uncertainty. After an innocent playdate, she felt the shift in the air, the weight of secret histories hanging over her. Conversations with neighbors turned cold, shadows in their eyes spoke volumes of buried dread they feared to mention. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Days bled into nights, and Sarah's sleep dwindled like dying embers. Every creak of the floorboard sent chills down her spine. The whispers grew louder, morphing into frantic hushes, enough to drive her onto the edge of madness. One evening, a shiver echoed through the hallway. She found herself staring down the very spot where the knight once stood, now bathed in an unsettling coldness. It felt wrong, sinister even. Shadows shifted, twisting figures in the corners of her eyes, leaving her breathless and panicked. With each dawn, she realized the truth of her home, a horrible legacy stitched into its fabric. The darkness wasn't new, it was a living history of families lost and children who vanished, lured by the shadow man who prowled these streets since time immemorial. No longer could she trust the smiling faces from the carpool line or in the neighborhood bake-offs. They were conspirators in this eerie charade, a tightly woven tapestry of horror hidden beneath the facade of suburban bliss. Desperate for answers, Sarah sought the solitude of a reclusive neighbor across the street, an elderly woman whose eyes burned with knowledge of the past. Confronting her, teeth chattering and hands trembling, Sarah was met with a foreboding warning that cut through the warm evening air like an ice-filled breeze. The tales of dark rituals clutched at Sarah's mind, leaving a suffocating grip on her sanity. "Look closely," the woman had whispered, a tremor in her voice. "The young are always taken. If you don't believe, you will bear the price." Determined but terrified, Sarah faced the encroaching darkness. Anxiety squeezed her chest tight as she grappled with the truth. Could she confront this shadow man? Or would her family become yet another casualty of the cursed legacy lurking in the depths of their very existence? The sun sank low, shadows deepening around her as she prepared for a fight rooted in whispers and mysteries, a terrifying reality where she must choose between bravery and a horrific fate. In each heartbeat, the clock was ticking down to darkness. What awaited her in the silence could end everything, or perhaps, just begin the nightmare anew. The night fell quickly, draping Maple Street in a cloak of darkness that swallowed every familiar shape. Sarah stood at her window, heart pounding, sweat mingling with the cool air. She looked down the street, illuminated only by the flickering streetlights that seemed to stutter against the encroaching gloom. She thought of Ella and Max, tucked safely in their beds, blissfully unaware of the whispers creeping through the walls. But then the whispers morphed into something more. A name echoed in her mind. Max. It twisted her stomach into knots. The thought of losing him was a terror that sent shivers down her spine. She had to find out what was happening before it was too late. The sun had set on Maple Street, but a fear that felt oddly ancient had only just begun to awaken. Quickly, she paced through the house, each step heavy with dread. The figurines, the knight and the dragon bore witness to her growing paranoia. She scanned the shadows for movement. Time felt elastic, stretching endlessly, then snapping back to an abrupt urgency. She needed her child. Panic coiled tightly around her as she quietly tiptoed to Max's room, gripping the doorknob with clammy fingers. The door creaked open, and she peered inside, heart racing. The sight of Max sleeping peacefully brought only brief relief. But it was short-lived. Something was off. The dragon lay on the floor at the foot of the bed, the knight gone. Hadn't she placed them both on the desk before? Suddenly, a soft thump reverberated from the hallway, jolting her from her thoughts. The stairs loomed before her like a mouth of darkness, beckoning her toward whatever lay at the bottom. Swallowing hard, she stepped onto the cold wood, gripping the railing with fear-filled hands. Each step felt heavier, as if the house itself pulled against her. The whispers returned, swirling like a storm around her mind. "Help him, come closer." They beckoned, slithering into her thoughts, promising secrets buried deep within the walls of the house. But their true intentions were veiled in shadows unknown. At the bottom of the stairs stood the front door, slightly ajar. Sarah's heart raced. The icy breeze that drifted inside felt like the breath of the night, chilling her all the way to her bones. She hesitated, caught between dread and an unexplainable draw toward the opening. What awaited her outside? As her courage wavered, it happened. A soft, haunting giggle echoed from the backyard. "Ella?" The faint sound twisted her stomach tighter. It wasn't her daughter's usual laugh. It had a tone, a pitch that sent waves of ice through her veins. She moved to the door, heart hammering with fear, the whispers intensifying, turning frantic. "Go. Now." Pushing the door wider, she stepped into the cold night. The yard loomed ahead, obscured in a blanket of darkness, but she could see a shadowy form dancing along the edge of the trees. The whispers took shape around her, chanting a chilling tune, guiding her toward the forest. Risking everything, Sarah followed, heart pounding, praying to find her children safe, even as the shadows beckoned. Little did she realize, the deeper she ventured, the farther from safety she strayed. Yet the Shadow Man was not the only one waiting. In the woods, ancient spirits stirred, hungry for the unwitting hearts that dared cross their threshold. What Sarah didn't know was that even the trees had eyes, and soon, she would unravel the horrifying truth that would shatter everything she thought she understood about the legacy of Maple Street. What price would she pay to uncover the shadows that haunted her? The trees were twisted, gnarled like old men with secrets to keep. Each creak of their branches sounded like a warning, a voice echoing through the night to turn back. But Sarah pressed on, calling Ella's name, the whispers mingling with her voice. "Ella! Where are you?" Panic surged, crashing against her like waves. The ground squished underfoot, mud sucking at her shoes, as if the earth wanted to pull her down to join the shadows lurking beneath. The shadowy figure danced farther into the depths of the woods, cutting deeper into her resolve. "No! I need to find my kids!" She shouted into the void, but the forest swallowed her words, leaving only silence. The laughter echoed again, now close enough to send her heart racing. It wrapped around her, sweet and taunting, but tinged with something dark and sinister, like a wolf hiding among sheep. "Ella!" She cried again, the sound ripping from her throat. The response was not a reassuring answer but another laugh, high-pitched and chilling, forcing her deeper while shadows flickered around her. Breathless, she stumbled through the underbrush, the cool night air now stinging her lungs. The trees closed in, tighter and tighter, an army of twisted branches reaching for her, clawing at her sanity. A chill crept down her spine as she felt eyes on her, thousands of them hidden in the foliage. Just as she was about to call out again, the whisper came, sharp and clear, breaking through the din. "Leave now." It wasn't Ella's voice, and dread pooled in her gut. It felt ancient, a warning from deep within the earth. But fear pushed her on. I have to find my children. Suddenly, she spotted movement. A flash of white among the black a figure. Ella! She called with sudden hope, racing forward. The shadows thinned for a moment, revealing a small shape. But as she got closer, her heart froze. The little girl wasn't Ella. The child turned, her face pale, eyes hollow and wide, filled with a darkness that didn't belong in this world. Help me, she whispered, voice trembling like a leaf in the wind. The instant horror that gripped Sarah was paralyzing. No, where's Ella? The girl's gaze was unblinking, and a shiver ran through Sarah as realization dawned. This wasn't a child in need, it was a deceiver. The forest pulsed around her, shadowy figures flitting past, drawing nearer, anticipating her next move. The shadows beckoned with hissing whispers. Join us, they wove around her, fingers brushing, chilling her skin. A flicker of hope, a determination not to lose everything, ignited within. Get away from her! Sarah screamed. The figure recoiled, shrieking, and shadows pulsed around her, angry at being challenged. A gust of wind tore through the trees, and the sweet laughter turned to shrill cackling, echoing with each breath Sarah took. With a deep breath, she turned on her heels and ran back the way she came, but the path twisted, misdirecting her. The woods shifted, branches tangled together, blocking her escape. She fought against the suffocating dark, heart pounding like a final drumbeat. Max! She yelled. Ella! Panic flooded her veins. The shadows swallowed her cries, pulling memories of laughter into silence. Fear clawed at her throat. The laughter returned, filling the air with an ominous presence. She felt eyes everywhere, judging, watching as she stumbled deeper into the abyss. There was no way out, not anymore. Gritting her teeth, she pushed through the oppressive darkness, but the more she fought, the more it sucked the light out of her soul. As she neared a clearing, a low growl rippled through the trees. Sarah's breath hitched. She wasn't alone anymore. Something lurked, craving the fear that radiated off her, waiting for its moment. Suddenly, a figure stepped from the shadows. It was tall, shrouded in darkness, but Sarah felt the weight of its gaze as it locked onto her. Lose something? It intoned, a twisted grin stretching across its features. Terror flooded her senses. In this moment of dread, she understood she was not on a rescue mission. She was the prey, and the hunt was just beginning. What would she sacrifice to save her children from the ancient evil that sought to ensnare them all? As darkness closed in, she realized she may not be able to outrun it. But at what cost would she face it? The figure loomed larger, its form unsettling yet oddly familiar, an echo from a memory long buried. What are you? Sarah stammered, backing away. The shadows danced, but the entity remained still, each breath it took heavy with a sinister intensity. Just your friendly neighborhood ghost, it mocked, voice dripping with malice. It stepped closer, and Sarah noticed the glint of something sharp at its side, a blade, jagged and glistening in the sparse moonlight. Here to help you, find what you seek. She felt her heart race, a wild horse galloping towards despair. She couldn't think, she needed to run, to hide, but her legs felt like lead. Leave me alone. She snarled, her voice shaking. Oh, but I have plans for you, it cooed, tilting its head as if savoring the taste of her fear. The laughter echoed again, mingling with a sinister whisper. They're already part of us. Why not join? With an instinctive surge, Sarah broke into a sprint, pushing through the thick underbrush, but the forest itself felt alive, a trap closing in around her. The sharp branches clawed at her clothes, snagging her as if the very woods were conspiring against her escape. The laughter transformed into a haunting chorus, bouncing from tree to tree, making escape feel futile. Ella! Max! Someone! Help! She cried, voice trembling. But the only response was the low growl, pulling depths of terror from her chest. How could she save her children if she could barely save herself? Ahead, she spotted a flicker of silver light shining through the trees, a possible escape, a sliver of hope. Her pulse quickened, adrenaline surging as she sprinted towards it. The silence deepened, leaving only the sound of her frantic breathing and that cursed laughter echoing behind. The silver light drew nearer, revealing a clearing illuminated by a ghostly glow. Dead leaves and twisted roots formed a circle, the air buzzing with an ancient energy that made her skin prickle. Sarah stepped forward cautiously, the feeling of being watched intensifying. She could still hear the growl, now closer, mocking her. "What is this?" she gasped, heart hammering against her ribs. Suddenly, a figure erupted from the silver light, arms stretched wide. It was another child, but unlike the twisted face of the earlier specter, this one seemed innocent, bathed in a captivating glow. "Help us," it whispered urgently, eyes pleading. "We're trapped here forever. We need you." Sarah's heart twisted as hope and despair battled within her. "Ella? Is that you?" "No. She's not here." The child's voice rose, high-pitched and frenzied. "You mustn't listen to her. Follow me, please." With that, the figure darted back into the light, leaving an open path behind. With a shred of courage, Sarah took off after it. But the moment she crossed the threshold into the circle, the ground trembled, and darkness erupted like a beast awakened. The laughter crescendoed behind her, turning into a spine-chilling cacophony. She spun around, the entity in the shadows now fully revealed an array of hollow faces, each one twisted in mockery. "Leave her alone," the ghost child shouted, stepping in front of Sarah. "They can't take you. Fight it." Sarah stood, trapped between illusions of innocence and the embodiment of fear. The figures lunged for her, teeth bared in glee. What was she supposed to fight when everything felt like a nightmare? She felt weightless, suspended in a battle not just for her life, but for the very souls of her children. As she stood there, torn between choices, a blast of wind whipped through the clearing. Maybe, just maybe, it wasn't too late. But time was running out. The shadows pressed closer, hungry and longing, while the child's voice echoed in her mind. "Remember, you're stronger than this." What could she muster from the depths of her despair? As darkness bubbled to swallow her whole, Sarah made her choice. Would she unleash her own hidden strength, or let fear consume everything she loved? The world swung out of focus for a moment. The shadows closed in, nearly palpable, ready to engulf her whole. Sarah glanced at the ghost child, its face was a mix of urgency and fear. The moment hung in the air like a trapped breath. "Fight!" The child's voice rang clear, sharper than the growling cacophony. With a wild determination stirring inside her, Sarah yelled back, "No! You will not take me!" As if ignited by her defiance, a warmth surged through her, swelling in her chest. The darkness hesitated, flickering around her like a dying ember. Blood pounded fiercely in her ears, drowning out everything else. Heart racing, she stepped forward, holding her ground against the approaching tide of shadows. The ghostly figures faltered, their hollow expressions morphing into ripples of uncertainty. "You think you can resist?" they hissed in unison. "You're part of us, Sarah. You always have been." "No!" she screamed, her voice shattering the murky air. "You don't own me." With that proclamation, she surged forward, the overwhelming fear igniting a flame of resolve within. The ghost child joined her, standing firm. "Remember us. Remember why you fight. Ella. Max." Sarah shouted again, the names dancing on her lips like a prayer. She focused on their faces, their laughter, their light. It pushed against the horror before her, forcing it back. The shadows writhed and snarled, pulling back momentarily, as though her words were daggers stabbing where it hurt most. "You belong in the darkness. They howled, rage resonating in each syllable. Embrace it. But she wouldn't. Not now. Not ever. A beam of silver light erupted from her heart, washing over the clearing and breaking through the gloom. The shadows shrieked, recoiling like creatures burned by sunlight. Sarah spun around, eyes locking with the child's eager gaze. Come on. We have to move. Together, they dashed towards the source of the silver glow, Sarah weaving through the thicket, branches snapping against her skin like icy fingers. The laughter turned to howls of rage, swirling behind her, but she focused on the child, the shimmering exit. Where are we going? She panted. To the others, to save them. We've got to set them free. The child's urgent plea urged Sarah onward, gripping her hand tightly. As they neared the light, Sarah noticed something strange, a line of silhouettes behind them, emerging from the darkness. Faces twisted in anguish, familiar faces. The laughter echoed again, more haunting this time. Could it be her children? Her breath caught, heart racing as she spun to face the gathering shadows. Ella! Max! She cried, but their faces melted into grotesque visages, full of despair, mercilessly mocking her pain. You'll never win, Sarah. A voice sneered, rising above the chaotic noise. They are already ours. Fear clawed at her throat, stifling hope. No, I won't let you. She screamed, desperation fueling her voice. In that moment, magic swirled in the air, and she could feel something, an ancient power thrumming within her. The clearing pulsed with energy as she felt it ignite. She thought of Ella, of Max, of everything she had ever fought for. Suddenly, the child beside her vanished into thin air as if swallowed whole by the shadows. No! The darkness surged like a tide, pushing Sarah back. Her feet slipped on the damp earth, but she refused to fall. With a guttural scream fueled by pain and love, she reached out, grasping for the light and her children. What if it was true? What if they were already taken? As the darkness pressed closer, Sarah braced herself and lunged, determined to shatter the suffocating veil that threatened to suffocate her family. But in that culmination of desperate hope and fear, the light flickered, dimming as shadows clawed closer. An echoing laughter twisted in the air, chilling her to the bone. Is it too late to choose? In the deafening silence, she felt doubt seep in. Would she be strong enough, or was the darkness whispering the truth? With every ounce of strength, she dove deeper into the unknown, racing against time. What awaited her on the other side? The darkness barreled toward her, thundering like a storm cloud ready to unleash its fury. Sarah's heart threatened to burst, pounding painfully against her ribcage. Each breath felt like frost on her lungs, the air around her thick with despair. She had to make it through. She had to find Ella, and Max had to prove that they weren't lost. But swirling shadows coiled around her feet, tugging her down like invisible hands. Panic surged through her, a wild animal trying to claw its way out. She pushed onward, driven by the desperate hope that flickered at the edge of her mind. What lay ahead? The silver light seemed to pulse, a beacon that promised safety, but it quivered. It knew the power of the darkness. The ground became treacherous, roots reaching up like serpents, trying to snare her and hold her back. Fight! Remember! The child's voice echoed in her mind, but a part of her was crumbling, losing touch with certainty. Just then, a flicker of movement caught her eye, shadows, not of torment, but of familiar faces. Barely visible, they formed a wall behind the advancing tide. They jostled for her attention, moments of happiness, lost memories clinging to her. There was Ella's laughter, remembered, Max's spirited energy, all reminding her of what she'd sacrificed. Keep moving. She chanted, a mantra against the rising tide. Keep moving. Shouts and whispers merged, the ghostly visages urging her on. The sound warped, becoming a chilling echo that gnawed at her nerves. They are ours, Sarah. Forever. She stumbled, terror washing over her like a cold wave. But the child's face filled her vision again. Its eyes burned with a mixture of intensity and pleading. You have to believe. You have to fight back. Spurred by this image, Sarah pushed herself harder, drawing strength from the ghost child's unwavering stare. Tonight, failing was not an option. She felt the surge of something ancient and powerful coiling in her belly, reminding her that she was not the darkness pawn. As the shadows encroached, she summoned it, focused on anger, loss, and love. Light erupted from her in wavering pulses, fighting back the horror that threatened to consume everything. The shrieks echoed, but she could hear something else now, a collective howl mingled with panic, an echo of her children caught in the rift. Fragments of their laughter filled her with urgency. Find us, Mama. Don't let them take us. With a feral scream, she lunged toward the pulsating light. She could almost feel the warmth enveloping her, like a wisp of hope cutting through the darkness. But as she reached out, the shadows snarled back, licking at her skin like flames. Help us. Save us. Their voices cried from the abyss. No. She shouted, her will igniting. You will not take my children. The shadows recoiled, their unnatural forms flickering. An opening, a corridor of shimmering silver surged forth, its edges sharp with defiance. Sarah sprinted forward, moving faster than she thought possible, fueled by every ounce of determination. But as she plunged into the expanse, a sudden shift in the air stopped her cold. The warmth extinguished, replaced by a bone-chilling cold. An eerie silence enveloped her, pressing against her chest. Had she escaped the shadows, or had she merely entered a new realm, another layer of their nightmare? The ground beneath her quaked as ghastly whispers drifted through the void. They taunted, beckoned her further down a dark path. Each word twisted in her head, planting seeds of doubt and dread. Where are you now, Sarah? What will you sacrifice to find them? Her mind spiraled, uncertainty gripping her. Was this truly the way to her children, or was it another trap laid by the darkness? As she stood on the precipice of fear and resolve, she realized a choice was looming. But could she make it before the shadows reclaimed their hold? With each beat of her heart, the question pulsed louder in the quiet, what will you risk to save them? A crystalline stillness enveloped Sarah, an oppressive blanket that weighed heavily on her. She stood frozen, uncertainty gnawing at her resolve like a ravenous beast. The whispering darkness wrapped around her, curling like smoke, teasing her sanity with its dreadful caress. Sarah, the voice cut through the silence, chilling her to the bone. It was soft yet saturated with malice, echoing from every corner of this new space. She clenched her fists, the sharpness of her nails biting into her palm, grounding her in the moment. Do you see how far you've come? The voice dripped with mockery. And yet, how close you are to losing everything. In that moment, the memories of Ella and Max surged within her, drowning out the creeping dread. She could picture their faces, the warmth of their smiles, the way they ran toward her with arms open wide. Focus, focus, she whispered to herself, her breath forming frosty clouds in the frigid air. The void around her roared louder then, morphing into chaotic laughter. Visions began to materialize, distorted reflections of her life with the children, shadowy silhouettes of joy twisted into grotesque forms. Their laughter turned into wails echoing in the distance, an agonizing call that shattered her heart. Where are you? She screamed, desperation clawing at her throat. Ella. Max. Lost, the voice taunted. You allowed yourself to be lost, Sarah. A cold shock coursed through her veins, sending tremors down her spine. The walls of this spectral realm pulsed like a living thing, breathing shadows that warped and twisted around her. They moved closer, enveloping her in a suffocating embrace. Panic welled up as Sarah fought back the surge of fear threatening to pull her under. Fight! You can't give in! She shouted, her voice fierce, determined. The darkness writhed, recoiling from her defiance. But where there was movement, there also lurked a shuddering hesitation. Sarah took a step forward, bolstered by a flicker of courage. She refused to let their twisted games break her. "You will not take my children," Sarah roared. The silence cracked, the shadows recoiling further at her declaration. But then she heard it, a faint murmur, brushing against her ear like a forgotten lullaby, delicate yet haunting. "Help us!" It was them. Ella? Max? Panic ignited her spirit as dread twisted into resolve. "Where are you?" The darkness shifted, revealing a network of shadows dancing, intertwining like writhing snakes. Each movement told a story steeped in horror, the sorrow of the lost, the cries of countless souls trapped in the void. It began to form an archway, a doorway obscured by pulsating gloom. "Shall we see what lies beyond?" The voice chuckled, and for a heartbeat, the shadows hungered, waiting for her answer. This entrance felt different, like the heart of a storm waiting to unleash its fury. She could choose to follow the light, to chase after her children through the grip of this nightmare, or she could succumb to despair, spiraling into nothingness. "Come to us, Sarah," the shadows beckoned, their sounds wrapping around her like chains, alluring and treacherous. She inhaled sharply, the cold air biting at her throat. Her resolve flickered like a candle caught in a tempest. As she took a cautious step toward the archway, the laughter twisted ominously, and she knew whether this path led her to salvation or doom, the choice was hers alone. Time hung heavy in the air. She could feel the darkness close in, demanding her submission. Was she prepared to risk it all? "What awaits you there?" The shadows writhed eagerly, awaiting her decision. In the depths of that swirling void, a deeper terror loomed. Could she brave the dark and find her children, or was the real threat lurking closer than she dared to imagine? With a deep breath, Sarah stepped through the archway, the darkness swallowing her whole. A jolt of cold surged through her, and she gasped, feeling like she was falling into an endless abyss. But then, just as quickly, the sensation vanished as she landed hard on solid ground, gasping for breath. She blinked, trying to adjust her eyes to the dimness surrounding her. Shadows danced across the walls like fleeting memories, flickering just out of reach. The air remained icy, but there was an unmistakable scent like damp earth mixed with the sweetness of rotten blooms. A primal fear slithered up her spine. "Ella! Max!" She called out again, straining her voice against the weight of the void. The echoes seemed to mock her, returning her own desperate cries twisted and distorted, a cacophony of anguish. Ahead, she noticed a faint glimmer, a glint of light fighting to break through the oppressive gloom. She moved toward it, her heart pounding. As she stepped closer, the light solidified into shapes, figures moving anxiously in the distance. "Mom?" A voice called, desperate yet distant. "Ella!" She surged forward, the name spilling from her lips like a prayer. She could see her daughter now, her small form outlined against the shadows. But something about her was wrong. Her face was pale, her eyes wide with terror. "Mom, don't!" Ella screamed, the sound piercing the air. Sarah halted, confusion knitting her brow. "What do you mean?" "I'm here to save you." But Ella's eyes turned from hope to fear, darkening in a flash. "You can't. They're watching." Her voice trembled, and Sarah could hear it crack under the strain. "What do you mean? Who's watching?" Panic surged back, drowning her resolve. A shrouded figure emerged from the depths behind Ella, tall and menacing, a silhouette of chaos with tendrils of smoke emanating from its form. The air thickened, making it hard to breathe. It pointed a crooked finger at Sarah, and all at once, the memories of her children's laughter faded away like the last rays of sunlight during a storm. "Join us," the figure's voice rasped, rich with malice and promises wrapped in silk. "Give in to despair, no." Sarah shouted, her throat raw. "I will not give in." Ella's eyes widened, tears spilling down her cheeks. "Run, Mom. Please." But before Sarah could move, the shadows pinned her in place, whispering sweet nothings, seducing her with visions of a life without pain. Images of her children's endless smiles twisted into nightmarish grins. The shadows wove around her, each one a tendril of fear, ensnaring her spirit, squeezing tighter. Your children are lost. They are ours now. The figure laughed, a chilling sound that echoed endlessly, reverberating through Sarah's mind. No! She screamed, rage igniting within her. I will find them. And just like that, the grip loosened, but only for a moment. She felt the shadows lurch forward, hungry for her despair. Steeling herself, she lunged toward Ella, but the distance felt insurmountable. Mom! You must choose. Ella cried, no longer the innocent child she remembered. Choose. The word tasted bitter on her tongue. Choose what? The figure loomed larger, the shadows thickening around them, warping reality into a cruel mirage. To stay with us, or to join them in the light, where they truly are. A vision flashed through Sarah's mind, Ella and Max, laughing, playing beneath the sun, oblivious to the darkness. She knew she had to act, but with the shadows swirling like a tempest, time was running out. Choose wisely, Sarah. The murmur slithered forth, layered with deceit and desperation, chilling her to the core. In the depths of her turmoil, one question burned bright. Would she risk everything and dive deeper into the darkness, or would she confront the haunting terror that awaited her beyond it? The moment hung still, the shadows pulsating with unease, and Sarah's breath hung nervously in her throat. She gripped her daughter's pleas, echoing like a drumbeat in her mind as the sinister figure leaned closer. Choose wisely, Sarah. The words dripped with venom, sending chills skittering down her spine. In a heartbeat, the shadows around her intensified, twisting and stretching, as if eager to swallow her whole. The darkness closed in, dousing the remnants of light, wrapping her in suffocating tendrils. Panic clawed its way into her chest. She needed to move. She needed to reach Ella. Mom! Ella cried again, her voice sharp with urgency, slicing through Sarah like a blade. Hold on, sweetheart. Sarah shouted, desperation fueling her resolve. She focused on the slender figure of her daughter, battling through the haze of despair. She strained to step closer, to break through the barrier separating them, but the shadows pressed down like iron weights. Then, the figure behind Ella let out a cruel laugh, a dry, rasping echo that filled the abyss. You cannot save what is not yours. The light is fleeting, and the darkness? It clings like a lover, sweet and enveloping. Shut up. Sarah screamed, ignoring the fear curling in her stomach. A fire ignited within her, blazing against the chilling cold. You don't control me. With every ounce of strength and desperation, she dashed forward, trying to breach the invisible line that held her back. The shifting shadows recoiled slightly at her determination, as if detecting a pulse of resistance. But it wasn't enough. The ghostly barriers held her steady, a cruel game of cat and mouse. Mom, please. Ella's cries intensified, each syllable laced with pain. And suddenly, the dark figure moved. Long, skeletal fingers stretched toward Sarah, brushing against her skin like ice. Join us, or witness your children slip away forever. Embrace the void. The invitation was intoxicating, whispering promises of relief from her suffering, but Sarah blinked, the thoughts tangling, jarring her resolve. She remembered their laughter, fleeting moments of joy. She could almost see them, Ella in a dress twirling in sunlight, Max flying a kite, their faces alive with the happiness she thought lost. I won tea. She shouted against the void, pushing against the unseen forces. But the shadows tightened suddenly, clenching around her throat, desperate to silence her defiance. Fear seeped through her, merging with the cold reality. Would she sacrifice her spirit to save her children? The image of their innocent smiles fueled her courage, and she shouted, I will find you. With a final push, something deep within surged, and she forced herself forward again, wild hope igniting her frail heart. The shadows lurched back, retreating with an almost hateful shriek, warping into grotesque shapes as they pulled away from her determination. But just as she thought she could reach Ella, the ground beneath her trembled, the very fabric of reality quaking. The dark figure leaned close now, whispering darkly, "Did you think it would be so easy? They are lost, and so shall you be." Before Sarah could react, the shadows split. She felt the ground buckle and shift, and abruptly, she was falling. Panic ripped through her, the weightless sensation tugging at her insides as she plummeted headlong into darkness. "Mom!" Ella's voice faded, replaced by the eerie silence of a void swallowing her scream. Suddenly, she landed again, crashing down on rough, broken ground. No shadows here, no sinister figure stalking her. Just a vast emptiness. But could her children be far from her? She rose, trembling, every nerve alight, and listened. Then came a whisper, light as mist yet chilling to the bone. Find us. A shockwave of dread flooded through her. What was this new horror she had awakened? And now, in the silence, a terrible realization seeped in. What if the darkness had plans for her children she couldn't understand? What if they'd already paid the price? The echo of the void laughed softly, as she tiptoed forward, heart racing. And in the stillness, beneath the weight of despair, a new thought emerged. Could she save them, or were they truly lost forever? Sarah stood alone in the vast emptiness, her heart pounding like a war drum. The chilling whispers surrounded her like a noose tightening, whispering taunts that sunk into her mind. Find us floated through the air again, the sound both hopeful and hopeless, a cruel mixture that cut through her like glass. She forced herself to breathe, each inhale a flicker of determination against the relentless tide of darkness. Ella's innocent face flashed before her. Max's laughter echoed like a siren's call. "I will not give up," she yelled into the void, her voice resonating, shaking the oppressive air. The shadows stirred, feeling the force of her resolve. "Very well," the sinister voice crooned, slithering through every corner of her being. "But remember, the price of saving them is steep." Sarah clenched her fists, courage swelling deep in her gut as she refused to yield to doubt. "Let us see what price I'm willing to pay then," she declared, charging forward into the thick mist, the remnants of her fear trailing behind her like shadows. As she stepped forward, a glimmer of light broke through the darkness. It flickered, pulsing like a heartbeat, a beacon that felt both inviting and foreboding. She hesitated, the darkness hissing at her heels, but the thought of her children pushed her onward. As she moved through the shifting fog, she stumbled into a clearing, illuminated in soft gold. Images coalesced around her, a cascade of memories filled with laughter, sunshine, and love. But as she reached for the warmth, it turned into piercing echoes that sliced through her chest. Ella's voice echoed again, this time tinged with sorrow. "Mom, don't leave us." "No. I'm coming. I'm right here," Sarah cried, feeling her heart lurch. The shadows slithered closer, mocking her, tugging at her from all sides. "It's too late, Sarah. They are lost to you. You're losing time." She felt the darkness claw at her mind, trying to pull her into despair. Desperation ignited her fury. "You will not take my children," she shouted fiercely, igniting a fierce fire within her. The light around her flared, catching the shadows off guard. Then she saw them. Ella and Max stood in the shadows, ethereal and pale, gazes distant and fearful. The sight propelled her forward, but the darkness forced her back. "No!" she screamed, fighting against their grasp as they edged further away. "You can't have them. Will you sacrifice your life to save them?" The voice echoed around her, wrapping around her heart like a serpent. "Is your love enough?" The question hung heavy in the air, clinging like a fog. But there was no hesitation in her heart. "I will do anything for them," she declared defiantly. With a primal roar, she burst forward, the darkness retaliating, lashing out like a vicious beast. The mist frayed under her will, revealing the true nature of this cursed place, filled with suffering and lost souls that wandered eternally. But she would not be one of them. Ella! Max! She screamed, her voice breaking through the noise of shadows and whispers. The air vibrated, an energy thrumming through her, connecting her to them. She remembered the warmth of their hugs, the way they looked at her, filled with trust and love. With a surge of power, she plunged into the light, shattering the veil that held her children, embracing the truth love is stronger than fear. The moment she stepped into the radiant warmth, the world around her erupted in brilliance. Light erupted from her fingertips, banishing the darkness with a fury born of every moment of love she had for her children. The shadows writhed in agony, shrieking as they pulled away, their power crushed beneath her resolve. And then, amidst the chaos, she saw them, Ella and Max. Their eyes sparkled with fear and hope. A link flared between them, a tether of love stretching across the abyss. The darkness shrieked, clawing at her as she reached out, desperation burning in her chest. "Grab my hand. I'm here," she cried, heart racing as they rushed to her. The shadows fought, lashing out in a final attempt to reclaim their prize. The moment their fingers intertwined, a shockwave of energy pulsed through her, coursing right to her core. "Hold on tight," she urged, fighting against the darkness that churned like a tempest. The ground trembled violently, but together, they surged toward the blinding light, a barrier of love pushing back the darkness. The shadows screamed, tortured souls unraveling, twisting into shapes of horror as the light washed over them. And just as despair threatened to claim them all, the darkness fractured, shattered into 1,000 shimmering shards. Sarah felt the world tilt, spinning into brilliance, a purifying wave lapping away the dread that had clung to their souls. Suddenly it was over. Silence enveloped them, a sacred stillness. As she blinked, the sun broke over the horizon, painting the world with colors of dawn. Sarah gasped, embracing the warm light wrapping around her. Ella and Max stood before her, alive, sparkling with an innocence untouched by darkness. "Mom!" they exclaimed, voices ringing sweet as they crashed into her arms. "Are you okay?" Sarah whispered, fear still tangled in her heart. "Yeah. You saved us." Max beamed, his smile radiant. The warmth of relief flooded over her as she held them tight. The shadows had been vanquished, but the scars would remain. "We're free, we're all free," Sarah whispered softly, tears pouring down her cheeks, mingling with the warmth of sunlight. Together, they stepped back into the world, back to Maple Street, where laughter would fill their home again, untouched by the whispers that haunted it before. As they embraced the beginnings of their new life, Sarah promised herself that no darkness would overshadow their joy again, and they would share their story, to ensure no one else would face the same dread. And from that day onward, they lived in peace, a bond forged from love, overcoming the shadows etched in their past. But somewhere in the winding roots of Maple Street, the whispers still lingered, waiting for their next victims, so tread carefully, for the shadows know how to twist the innocent into unwelcome desires for those who dare to play. If you enjoyed this wild ride, you need to subscribe now to my channel so you don't miss exclusive stories just like this one. And smash that like button to feed the algorithm, seriously, it helps so much. Flood the comments section with your thoughts and theories on this ending, it matters. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this incredible conclusion. Your support means the world.